Hey everybody, Simu aka Chairman here with a special video detailing the new rules changes to the English comprehensive rules for Weiss Schwarz this last Friday. A lot of these changes have already been in the Japanese comprehensive rules for a while, so it's great that we're finally getting these updates. However, there is one English exclusive change that's pretty crazy and will definitely change how decks are played going forward. Let's get straight into it. Starting with the big change, we have an update to the way cards are referred to by name in English. The new rule now reads, if written as with circle 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 in its card name, this refers to a portion of a card's English card name where there is either a punctuation mark or no text immediately before and after circle circle circle. The old rules checked for specifically a space before and either a space or colon after, but the new rules check for any form of punctuation or white space before or after the English name of the card, which means that a card like Kirito's partner Yu-Gi-Oh would previously not be considered to have Kirito in the English name because there's a quotation mark before and an apostrophe afterwards, but now it is considered to have Kirito in the English name, similar to how it is considered to have Kirito in its Japanese name as well. Now remember that this only affects abilities that check for a name and don't provide a Japanese name in addition. Most cards printed in modern sets check for names in both English and Japanese, and when checking this way, punctuation doesn't matter at all. However, English sets and a select number of old non-errata JP cards still have the old wording without the Japanese name and now follow this new rule. So this rule fixes a lot of these old cards and they now properly work as intended. Yay! Among them, the biggest benefactor is probably Sayaka's Wish, which previously could not target Sayaka's Healing Prayer to send to the waiting room, an interaction that is very useful in preventing Sayaka's Healing Prayer from being reversed and taking the mandatory clock 1. Also notably, the Silica support cards now all function properly in case we get future Silica support with weird English names. For English cards, Vegan calling for reinforcements can now successfully call the Shigeo Mob Kageyama Brainstorm. Previously, this brainstorm was an illegal target as the name Mob is surrounded by quotes and was not considered to be part of its English card name with the old ruling. These cards work together quite well, so it's a good thing that the interaction is finally fixed. However, the new ruling change does introduce some unintentional side effects. For example, Entrusted Arm of the Archer Shiro is now a legal target for the Fate Zero event Vimana, only in English, not in Japanese. In Japanese, Vimana cannot salvage the Shiro. This is because the Japanese word for archer here is not acha like the servant's name, but kyuhei, literally the Japanese word for an archer. This card fails to check for any card that checks for archer parentheses acha, but since Vimana is an old card with the old wording, it can grab this Shiro by checking only for the English name and not the Japanese name as well. In the grand scheme of things, this is probably not a big issue since a player probably does not want to salvage this Shiro with Vimana at level 2 anyways, but there could be other fringe scenarios in the future with these old cards, so they probably should be errata to behave like the new wording just in case. All in all, this ruling change was a much needed and long overdue change. Mob players no longer in shambles. The next ruling change is an updated clause that says, an ability that presumes being usable in a zone is valid in that zone. This was added in version 1.88 of the Japanese Comprehensive Rules in December 2020. From what I can tell, this was added as clarification and doesn't change any existing interaction. If anyone knows differently, please let me know in the comments below. Moving on, we have an entirely new section called Referencing Information. This was added in version 1.89 of the Japanese Comprehensive Rules in January 2021. This clarifies what happens when a card loses or doesn't have any information from an effect such as Demon King's Love. There is actually one single interaction that this changes, and it's really out there, involving a common from The Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi. Classmate Kunikita gives characters with no trait the ability to search your deck for up to one character with no traits, but if your opponent used Purification Aqua, this now fails because no trait is not the same thing as a card with its traits removed and having no information. Now that's an obscure interaction. A small change was added to the new rule regarding how cards get resolved one at a time from the bottom of the deck. Before, the text only mentioned from the top of the deck, but now it includes the bottom as well. This was added in version 1.93 of the Japanese Comprehensive Rules in September 2021. This clarifies what happens when a card like Delightful Banquet Rem uses its Climax combo. Because Rem's Climax combo effect says up to, you can stop whenever you want, meaning once you reveal a climax, you can stop there without milling the other cards and leaving extra clean cards in your opponent's deck for damage. I wouldn't say that the ruling has changed how this deck works, but now it's clarified that it works whether the cards come from the top or the bottom of the deck. The next set of changes are purely structural and are simply reorganizing what used to be sections 9.6 and 9.7 into sections 3.6.6, 3.11.3, and a new 9.6 that handles all illegal cards in zones. This was added in version 1.90 of the Japanese Comprehensive Rules in March 2021. It also changes what happens to a non-climax card if it tries to get moved into the climax zone, but to my knowledge, nothing could move a non-climax card to a climax zone in the first place. We have some updated wording on what happens during a trigger check. This was added in version 1.93 of the Japanese Comprehensive Rules in September 2021. This update seems also to be for clarification purposes only and doesn't change any existing interactions. It's helpful for games to define game-specific language like trigger check and not rely on players being familiar with the game or other similar games. For example, most Weiss players will refer to the effect perform a trigger check 2 times on the trigger step as Twin Drive, which comes from Cardfight Vanguard. But if you weren't familiar with Vanguard, you'd have absolutely no idea what Twin Drive means. It's not bad to have cool names for abilities, but it is important to keep in mind both new and veteran players. Last but not least, we have several updates across the board clarifying what counts as activating an ability. These were added in version 1.91 of the Japanese Comprehensive Rules in May 2021. Now, to the best of my knowledge, this doesn't change any existing ruling scenario, but it helps a lot in regards to clarity and explaining resolution order. The old wording used the terms use and resolve, which are technically accurate but can cause misunderstanding between players regarding what counts as using an ability and what counts as resolving an ability. For example, if I attempt to use a brainstorm but fail to pay the cost because I don't have any stock, does this count as having used the brainstorm? Or if I brainstorm but don't hit any climaxes, does this count as successfully resolving the brainstorm? The answer is no and yes, respectively, but this isn't something that's obvious without looking at multiple sections of the comprehensive rules. Now, it clearly says that activated abilities and other abilities are used when their cost is paid, regardless of whether or not the resolution does anything. They also reworded the change and fusion usage to not use the word master, which is strange. It's functionally the same thing as the old wording, but now it potentially allows you to trigger an on change or on fusion effect for a card you don't control. Are we going to get a lava golem effect? That would be really interesting. And that's an explanation of all the new ruling changes from the latest version of the English Comprehensive Rules. To recap, most of the changes were clarifying changes that have been added to the Japanese Comprehensive Rules over the course of the past year. And the big change is the new naming clause, which fixes most of the broken interactions in English Weiss Schwarz and adds a new one. Thanks for watching this video. Please let us know in the comments below if this kind of rulings focused video is helpful or not. See you next time!